Howdy, my name is Connor Shaw, and today I'll be discussing the population decline rates of Avis mellifera when faced with urbanization and a lack of flower diversity. Avis mellifera, the honeybee, commonly known as the western honeybee, is one of the many pollinators that play a key role in our environment, but is arguably the most important one of them all. The plants rely on them to pollinate them in order for them to bloom. However, the bees are just as reliant on the plants for survival and reproduction. They are one of about 30 other subspecies, and they are native to Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. In this presentation, I will be discussing how the Western honeybee is negatively affected by the human interaction, such as urbanization, and also discussing the ways humans have tried to combat this problem they have created. With limited flower diversity because of urbanization, these bees will struggle to find nectar to feed their larvae, and it will cause population decline. The Western honeybee plays a huge role in the health of the environment, and if we create a limited flower diversity through urbanization, we will no longer be able to reap the benefits of these amazing creatures. For my research question, I asked, how does urbanization affect flower diversity, and what effects does it have on the Apis mellifera populations compared to an area with a natural abundance of flower diversity? Independent variable is levels of flower diversity, and the dependent variable is measured growth and survival rates. For my hypothesis, I said, larvae in colonies with minimal flower diversity in places such as urbanized areas will show lower survival rates and lower population compared to colonies that have more access to a diverse floral diet in the natural wilderness without human interference. Feeding the larvae. When the Apis mellifera are feeding the larvae within the hive, the nurse bee will go out and forage for pollen, which then will turn into jelly that they feed to the young. The nurse bee creates the jelly by consuming pollen and putting it into their hypopharyngeal glands within their bodies and their own body proteins. They then physically enter the brood cell where the larvae resides and regurgitate a drop of jelly. The amount they regurgitate depends on the age of the larvae in the cell, which they can naturally tell. This is the key factor when it comes to increasing population of the Western honeybee. And on the right, I have some images of the nurse bees actually feeding the larvae. Urbanization. Urbanization is very common nowadays in areas where it used to be a natural environment where the bees were wild and foraged over vast amounts of different flowers. Studies show that in areas of high urbanization, there are less flowers to produce pollen and less opportunities for these nurse bees to collect pollen, which they will later turn into jelly to feed their young. This has a direct effect on the growth of larvae and overall population of Western honeybees. Data on the effects of urbanization. The data from this study shows Apis mellifera communities in an urban ecosystem on the island of Montreal, Quebec, Canada in 2020 at 15 sites, including gardens, cemeteries, and parks, and the effects the urbanization has on these bees from these sample spots, which I have shown on the right over here, where the yellow dots are marked as the gardens, and the purple are parks, and orange are cemeteries. And The smaller dots off to the side are small areas from surrounding forest. They also did they also did similar samplings in a nearby forest in order to compare the two results. After studying their research, it became obvious that the areas within the urban communities were struggling to find a sufficient amount of nectar and had declining populations. On the other hand, the populations located in the wilderness had more access to flower diversity and were able to grow their colonies' populations. How can we combat this issue? If urbanization is inevitable, then that means Western honeybee population decline is also inevitable. If we need them both, we have to figure out how to have them both. The only way to do that is to create more man-made urban bee colonies around gardens and fragments of preserved forest where nectar can still be obtainable by them. In conclusion, protecting natural forests and wilderness is critical when trying to grow a colony. In certain areas that are primarily dominated by buildings and humans, lack flowering plants that produce nectar. Because of this, the Apis mellifera western honeybee colonies will struggle to find the proper nutrients to feed the young, creating a decrease in populations. Whereas compared to areas that are rich in diverse flowers, are proven to be much more ideal for feeding a honeybee larvae and growing their populations. And here are my references. Thank you very much.